For 7 years, the Alpha King never touched me, until one night he finally broke and devoured his queen. 7. Damn. Years. People like to romanticize royalty. They imagine gilded halls, silk gowns, servants bowing, a life dipped in gold and luxury. But no one understands the prison of a crown. No one understands what it feels like to lie in a bed big enough for two, listening to your heartbeat echo through silence so thick it crushes your ribs. Do you know what it's like to sleep next to someone who won't even look at you? To be a queen without a king's love? To be chosen but never wanted? Every night I lay beside the most powerful werewolf in Silvermoon Ridge, the Alpha King everyone feared. Yet he treated me as if my very existence poisoned the air around him. He never touched me, never kissed me. Never once reached out to hold the hand of the woman he was forced to marry. I was his wife in name only, his curse, his burden, his biggest regret. People whispered it in the streets, in the palace corridors, behind ornate fans during banquets. The queen he never touches. The queen he never wanted. They didn't know it, but every whisper was a blade. And I died by 1,000 cuts long before he finally shattered that night and touched me like a starving man finding food after years in the dark. My name is Elena Frost. I'm 26 years old. And I live in Silvermoon Ridge, a city ruled by wolves, bound by ancient magic, and merciless to those who dare show weakness. Here, rejected mates don't survive long. They disappear, fade away, die of heartbreak, or get handled, as the royal advisors like to phrase it. I survived only because the law said queens couldn't be eliminated. But living unloved? Living invisible? That was its own kind of slow, exquisite death. I still remember my wedding night, every vivid detail etched into my bones like a scar that refuses to fade. The kingdom celebrated for days. Bells rang across the land, wolves shifted under moonlight, dancing and howling in honor of the peace treaty forged between two warring packs, the Frostborn and the Nightfangs. The treaty demanded a bride, a sacrifice, a lamb in white lace offered up to the Alpha King. That lamb was me. I was 19, too young to understand politics, too naive to realize that love was never part of the arrangement. I walked down the aisle with trembling hands and a desperate, foolish hope that the stories were true. That mates, even forced ones, eventually softened. That love could grow where duty was planted. That maybe, just maybe, he would try. But when I reached him, when I looked up and met the cold blue eyes of King Lucian Nightfang, all those hopes withered instantly. He didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't even pretend. He looked at me as if the priest were binding him to a corpse. And when the ceremony ended, when the kingdom cheered and the stars glittered above us like little witnesses, he leaned close, his voice a blade pressed to my throat, and said, "Don't ever expect me to love you." 7 words, 7 years of pain. That night, as tradition demanded, I was escorted to the royal bedchamber, a room so breathtakingly beautiful it felt like a cruel joke. Silken sheets, a bed large enough to drown in, candlelight flickering against carved stone walls. I sat there, my heart pounding, hands shaking, waiting. The door finally opened. His footsteps approached. For one fleeting, desperate moment, I thought, maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he'll give me a chance. But he walked right past me. He didn't touch me, didn't speak, didn't even look my way. He removed his ceremonial cloak, folded it with military precision, and then lay on the farthest edge of the bed, his back rigid, his breathing controlled, his body turned away from mine as if even facing me was unbearable. I whispered, "Lucian?" He went still, but not in a good way. Not the stillness of attention, the stillness of disgust. "Eleanor," he said sharply, "sleep. The court will have questions tomorrow. The court will have questions." Not I, your husband, have anything to say. Not we should talk. Just politics. Always politics. I lay on my side of the bed, eyes burning, listening to the space between us stretch into a canyon. I stayed awake until dawn, begging the moon goddess for a scrap of affection, a crumb, a glance. It never came. And it didn't come the next night, or the next month, or the next year. For 7 years I lived in a palace filled with servants who bowed to me but never met my eyes. Beautiful rooms that echoed with silence. Closets full of gowns I wore for galas and banquets where people feigned admiration while whispering behind ornate goblets. Has the king touched her yet? Never. Imagine the humiliation. A queen without a king? How pathetic. I would smile, the perfect queen, trained to hide her wounds behind her crown, and pretend I didn't hear. But every whisper was a knife twisting deeper. The humiliation became a living thing, coiled in my chest, tightening day after day until breathing hurt. I tried everything. I changed my hair, wore red when he preferred blue, studied diplomacy, court strategy, pack law, ancient runes, anything that could make me valuable in his eyes. I became beloved by the citizens, respected by nobles, admired by visiting dignitaries. But none of it mattered. Lucian would pass me in the hallways like I was furniture. A decorative piece he was forced to keep but never touch. We would sit side by side during council meetings, our bodies separated by inches that felt like galaxies. He never brushed against me by accident, never leaned close, never allowed warmth to slip through the steel walls he built around himself. And strangely, painfully, he never touched other women either. He wasn't unfaithful. He wasn't cruel in the obvious ways. He wasn't the type to take lovers, flaunt mistresses, or punish me publicly. No, he was worse. He was absent. I wasn't rejected for someone else. I was rejected for nothing, for empty space, for silence, for a reason he never gave me. Do you know how that destroys someone? To not even be worth betrayal? Some days I would stand on the balcony outside my chambers and look down at the kingdom, wolves shifting in the moonlight, families laughing, mates embracing, and wonder if anyone, anywhere, had ever felt as alone as I did. I was the queen of Silvermoon Ridge, and yet I had never felt more invisible. 7 years of longing for someone who refused to even see me. 7 years of trying to be enough. 7 years of asking myself one question every night when I lay in that cold, untouched bed. Why wasn't I worth loving? I didn't know it then, but the answer would break everything I thought I understood, and it would change my life forever. I tried everything, everything a queen could do, everything a woman could do, everything a desperate, lonely wife could do when the man who owned her heart refused to even look at her. I changed my hair, long when he preferred short, short when he preferred long, braids when I heard his mother once praise them. I changed my clothes, silks, velvets, royal blues, warrior blacks, soft whites. I changed my scent, jasmine, then lavender, then rose, then nothing at all when I wondered if maybe I was simply too much. I sculpted myself into perfection piece by piece, graceful, intelligent, poised, beloved by the people. I attended every council meeting, learned every pack law, memorized the names of every noble, every village elder, every young wolf training in the academy. I walked the city streets, easing disputes, tending to the wounded, listening to concerns. I became the queen everyone adored. Everyone except the one person who mattered, Lucian. He'd pass me in the hallways like I was carved from stone, a decorative statue the palace staff polished but no one actually saw. Sometimes I would catch the faintest scent of him, pine and storm winds, and my heart would lurch in pathetic hope. Maybe today he'll speak to me. Maybe today he'll finally look at me. But he never did. Not when I greeted him, not when I bowed my head respectfully. Not when I walked beside him during ceremonies or stood behind him during treaties. He moved through life like a locked door, and I was the ghost forever knocking. There were moments, brief, accidental, when his gaze would glide over me during a discussion, during a ceremony, during a crowded ballroom filled with glowing lanterns and swirling gowns. For a heartbeat, I would think he saw me. But his eyes always kept going, past me, through me, around me, never to me. And somehow the worst part wasn't the lack of affection. It wasn't even the absence of love. It was the cruel, quiet truth that he never touched another woman either. There were no mistresses, no secret lovers, no stolen kisses behind closed doors. He didn't flirt back, didn't respond to the women who threw themselves at him. And many did. Especially after a banquet or hunt when he stood tall, fierce, draped in the authority of a king and the lethal grace of a warrior. He denied them all. And that somehow made the pain worse, because it meant my suffering wasn't because of someone else. It wasn't because he'd chosen another. It wasn't because he was in love with a ghost from his past. No, he was simply absent, emotionally starved, physically restrained, locked in some cold, unreachable world inside himself, and I, the wife bound to him by moonlit vows, was left outside in the snow. I wasn't rejected for someone. I was rejected for nothing, for empty space, for silence, for a void I couldn't compete with. Do you know what that does to a soul? Do you know how it feels to not even be worth betrayal? To not even deserve jealousy or anger or passion or rage? To be replaced not by another woman but by emptiness? Some nights I couldn't breathe. I'd sit on the balcony of my private chambers while the moon hung heavy and accusing in the sky, and I'd ask myself, what is wrong with me? What flaw do I carry that makes the king recoil? What sin did I commit to earn 7 years of nothingness? How does one compete with silence? My wolf, Astra, felt the pain too. She was fierce and loyal, born to bond, made to love, but every night she curled up wounded inside me, whimpering softly. He doesn't see us, she would whisper. He doesn't want us. Sometimes she raged, tried to claw her way out to confront him, but even she knew it would end badly. He was the Alpha King, the strongest wolf in generations, and we were the queen he refused to claim. I threw myself into palace duties just to avoid drowning in the ache. I visited orphanages, whispered encouragement to young wolves struggling with their shifts, helped heal elderly shifters whose bones trembled in winter chill. I became the queen Luciane could proudly display in front of courts and ambassadors. But pride was not affection. Approval was not intimacy. Duty was not love. There were nights when the loneliness built so high it felt like I was suffocating under it. Nights when I pressed my palm against the cold stone walls and wondered if anyone in the entire kingdom felt as hollow as I did. But the hallways carried whispers, soft, cruel ones, that reminded me exactly what people thought. 7 years now. Do you think he'll ever touch her? Maybe she's barren. No, it must be her. Something about her repels him. Poor queen. Imagine being unwanted by the man you're bound to. And every whisper carved another fracture into my heart. The breaking point came slowly, not suddenly, not violently, but over thousands of tiny moments that wore me down like water carving stone. The moment when I reached for a strand of hair falling out of place at a dinner and saw his gaze flinch away as if my movement startled him. The moment when I laughed, genuinely for the first time in weeks, and he left the room without explanation. The moment when I passed by the training grounds and watched him spar with 12 warriors at once, shirtless, powerful, magnificent. And he didn't even scent me, didn't even register that I existed. It was as though he'd erased me from his awareness entirely. One evening, after a diplomatic banquet, I walked beside him through the long corridor leading to our shared wing. I held a scroll of trade agreements, my mind racing with potential solutions to the drought affecting our eastern villages. I spoke quietly, respectfully, trying once again to build a bridge between us. "Lucien, the harvest reports. You don't need to trouble yourself," he said without looking at me. It wasn't rude. It was worse. It was dismissive, emotionless, detached. "I want to help," I whispered. "Go to your room, Elena." My room. Not our room. A wall I couldn't cross. He entered his chambers without another word, leaving me standing in the hallway with the scroll slipping from my fingers and the weight of 7 years settling heavily over my shoulders. That night, I broke, not in a dramatic way. Not with screams or shattered glass or furious tears. No, I broke quietly. The kind of breaking that comes when you realize the person you love most in this world feels absolutely nothing when you walk away. I sank to the floor of my chamber, wrapped my arms around myself and cried until my throat burned and my wolf curled into a ball of grief inside me. This wasn't a marriage. This wasn't a partnership. This wasn't even acquaintanceship. This was a slow, excruciating death by neglect. And somewhere in the darkness of that night, somewhere between the sobs and the shuddering breaths, a thought formed, fragile, frightened, but real. I can't live like this anymore. Not as a queen, not as a woman, not as a wolf. Something had to change. Either I would shatter completely, or I would finally walk away from the man who never once reached out to stop me. I didn't know it then, couldn't have known, that the moment I chose myself would be the moment everything in his world cracked open, and the man who'd ignored me for 7 years was about to break in a way I had never imagined. My 26th birthday arrived like a silent storm. No celebration, no festivities, no acknowledgement from the man who was legally, politically, and spiritually bound to me. Just another day in a kingdom where I was a queen in title and a ghost in practice. Except this time, something was different. I had nothing left. No more excuses to make, no more hopes to cling to, no more strength to pretend. 7 years had carved me hollow, and the emptiness inside me had finally grown too loud to ignore. I had made my decision. I was leaving, not running away. Queens don't flee. Not rebelling. I wasn't foolish enough to spark a war. I was resigning, walking away from a loveless marriage and offering Lucien the freedom to choose another queen, someone he might actually acknowledge, someone who wouldn't be a shadow haunting his corridors. I had even written a formal withdrawal letter to the High Council. It lay on my desk, sealed with my crest, waiting for morning delivery. My bags were half packed. Astra, my wolf, was quiet, not supportive, but defeated. Even she knew we couldn't survive another year like this. So I went to him. Not to seduce, not to cry, not to beg, but to say goodbye with whatever dignity I still had left. The palace hallways felt colder than usual, the torches flickering low as if the castle itself sensed the shift inside me. Every guard I passed bowed, unaware that they were witnessing my last walk as their queen. Lucien's chambers were on the opposite side of the castle, far from mine as always. We lived like two rulers sharing territory, not a husband and wife sharing a life. When I reached the massive double doors carved with wolves and storm swirls, my breath hitched. My hand trembled as I lifted it to knock. Once, twice. No answer. I pushed the door open, and everything changed. Lucien was inside, standing by the wide, arched window overlooking the moonlit forest. His back was to me, shoulders rigid, chest rising and falling with sharp, uneven breaths. At first, I thought he was angry. But then I noticed something I had never seen before. He was shaking, not subtly, not with suppressed rage. Violently. "Lucien?" I whispered. He didn't turn. But when he finally spoke, his voice was rough, like gravel scraping stone. "Get out." 2 words, harsh, commanding. The tone he used on enemies, traitors, rogues, not on me, not even at his worst. But tonight he sounded desperate. "I'm leaving anyway," I said softly. My voice didn't waver. I just came to tell you, I'm done being your ghost. That got him. He spun around so fast I flinched. For the first time in 7 years, I saw something break through that icy mask he always wore. His eyes, usually cold blue, were burning, wild, feral, terrified. Eleanor. My name left his lips like a curse and a prayer twisted together. You don't know what you're saying? Yes, I whispered. I do. I took a breath. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep wondering why I'm not enough for you. I can't keep dying in a marriage you refuse to acknowledge. So I'm freeing you from it. From me. A muscle in his jaw twitched. His breathing turned ragged. I'd hurt him, but not in the way I expected. Before I could blink, he crossed the room and slammed the door shut with a force that rattled the walls. My heart skipped. What are you doing? I demanded. You're not leaving. His voice was low, trembling. You can't. Yes, I can. I squared my shoulders. You've made it clear you don't want me. I'm not staying here to be invisible for another 7 years. He pressed his palms to the door behind me, trapping me without touching me. His body hovered inches from mine, closer than he had been in years. The heat radiating off him stole the air from my lungs. I don't want you, he repeated, voice cracking. Is that what you think? I scoffed, bitterness spilling through me. What else am I supposed to think, Lucian? You've barely spoken to me in 7 years. You avoid me like touching me will burn you alive. His eyes darkened. It does burn me alive. I froze. He shut his eyes, his forehead pressing to the door just beside me, breath shaking like he was on the edge of collapse. You think I don't want you? He whispered. Elena, I've wanted you every single night for 7 years. My laugh escaped before I could stop it. Sharp, painful, disbelieving. You expect me to believe that? That you've wanted me while treating me like furniture? While refusing to even look at me? His eyes snapped open. Don't mock me. Then explain it. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and angry. Explain why you've made me feel worthless for 7 years. Explain why you married me only to pretend I wasn't there. He stepped back, running a shaking hand through his hair. His breathing was uneven, almost pained. Eleanor, wanting you is the problem. Why? I demanded. Why is that a problem, Lucian? Why is touching your own wife such a curse? He looked at me then, really looked, and something inside him shattered. His voice broke completely when he said the words that changed everything. Because wanting you will kill you. The room went silent. I stared at him. What? I whispered. He swallowed hard, chest heaving like he couldn't get enough air. You heard me. No. That doesn't make sense. My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear anything else. What do you mean it will kill me? How? Why? He turned away, hands gripping the window frame as if he needed anchoring. His shoulders trembled. This isn't about rejection, or indifference, or you being unworthy. His voice was hoarse. It's about a curse. I blinked. A curse? My stomach twisted. He continued, voice barely more than a rasp. I'm not avoiding you because I don't want you. His fingers dug into the stone windowsill. I'm avoiding you because if I ever claimed you, if I ever touched you the way I've dreamed of, it would damn you. His voice cracked on the last word. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Lucian, I breathed, stepping closer. What curse? What happened? He didn't turn, didn't move. But when he finally spoke, his voice was the sound of a kingdom collapsing. Because the last woman I touched, the last woman I loved. His jaw clenched, his fists trembled. She died. In my arms, in agony. The air vanished from my lungs, and suddenly everything, every distant look, every avoided touch, every year of silence made horrifying, devastating sense. The words tumbled out of him like a dam finally shattering under the weight of 7 years' worth of secrets. His voice was low, ragged, almost unrecognizable, not the voice of an alpha king, but of a man drowning in memories he'd tried too hard to bury. It was the war, he whispered. That's where the curse began. My breath froze. The entire kingdom knew the stories. The war of Nightfall, the bloodshed, the witches who rose against the packs. But no one ever told the personal stories. Kings didn't talk about fear, or loss, or curses. Lucien, I stepped closer, but he raised a trembling hand, not to push me away, but to brace himself against the weight of what he was about to say. A witch from the Shadow Coven, he continued, voice cracking. A high priestess, powerful, ancient. She had a grudge against the Nightfang bloodline, and I was too young, too arrogant to understand what that meant. I watched his shoulders tighten, his head bow, as if forcing the memories out physically hurt him. She cursed me, he said. Not the kingdom, not my soldiers, me. A curse tailored specifically to destroy everything I loved. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding like thunder. What kind of curse? He turned then slowly, and when his eyes met mine, they weren't cold or distant or guarded. They were haunted. Any woman I claim, he said softly, any woman I touch, mark, or take as mine. His throat bobbed. She dies. The room tilted. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my breath. Dies, I whispered. He nodded once, a sharp, pained movement. Not quickly, he added. Not gently. Not peacefully. My stomach flipped. How? His voice was barely audible. In agony. Their magic drains, their life fades, their bond burns from the inside until... He stopped, eyes squeezing shut. I've seen it. I've watched it. A chill ran through me deeper than fear. There was something he wasn't saying. Lucien, I breathed. Who did this happen to? His jaw clenched, his hands curled into fists. He turned back to the window, as if he couldn't bear to look at me when he said the next part. My first mate, he whispered. When I was 17, I froze. She wasn't my fated mate, he clarified quickly, but she was someone I thought I could spend my life with, someone I trusted. His breath hitched. I was young, reckless. I claimed her without knowing the curse had already been placed on me. A pause, a tremor. Then the truth came out like a blade. She died 3 days later, and I couldn't save her. My heart shattered for him in that moment. For the boy he'd been, forced to watch someone he cared about wither away in his arms. For the king he became, carrying a burden no one else could see. I moved closer. He didn't stop me this time. Maybe he couldn't. Lucien, I whispered, you've been living with that for all these years. His voice broke. Yes. Alone? Yes. Why didn't you tell anyone? His lips curved into a bitter smile. Would you have believed me? Would the council, the packs, the kingdom? He shook his head. Kings aren't allowed to be cursed. Kings aren't allowed to be afraid, and kings certainly aren't allowed to admit they can't touch their own queens. I stared at him, tears gathering in my eyes. You should have told me, he laughed, a hollow, broken sound. I couldn't. Why? He finally looked at me again, and there was no mask, no armor, no icy distance, just raw, tortured truth. Because you were 19, he said. A girl forced into a political marriage you never asked for. I refused to be the monster who told a terrified bride that the man she was bound to could kill her with a kiss. My throat tightened. Lucien, I couldn't touch you. I couldn't even look at you too long, because every time I did, his breath hitched, sharp and painful. I wanted you. A tear escaped down my cheek. And wanting you, he whispered, terrified me more than any war, any prophecy, any enemy. But you didn't hate me, I said softly. Hate you. His voice cracked. I adored you. From the moment you walked down that aisle, I have never wanted anything in my life the way I want you. My heart stuttered. Then why? Because loving you would mean killing you. His voice was a knife twisting inside him. So I did the only thing I could do to keep you alive." He swallowed, a tear slipping down his cheek, something I never thought I'd witness. I shut myself away. From you. From desire. From everything. My breath caught. "For 7 years," he said. "I chose loneliness over your death. I chose silence over your screams. I chose distance because if I ever slipped, even once," his voice trembled, "you'd be gone." I felt the floor tilt beneath me, the truth hitting harder than anything I'd imagined. He hadn't been rejecting me out of cruelty. He had been protecting me. From himself. From the curse. From a fate worse than heartbreak. I took a shaky breath. "Lucien, why now? Why tell me tonight?" He let out a long, unsteady exhale and looked at the table beside him, where a torn, ancient-looking parchment lay. "I've been searching for a cure," he said, "for 7 years. Every witch, every healer, every ancient text, every forbidden spell. Nothing worked. Every lead collapsed. Every promise fell apart." He walked toward me slowly, carefully, like he was afraid I'd disappear. "But tonight," his voice went soft, "tonight I found it." My heart thudded violently. "A cure?" I whispered. He nodded. "Yes." "What kind of cure?" He reached out, then stopped, his hand inches from my cheek, trembling violently. He wanted to touch me, he was aching to, but the curse held him back. "It's you," he said. A chill raced through me. "Me?" "Your bloodline," he breathed. "Your pack's ancient magic, frostborn lineage. You were always the answer, Elena." His gaze softened, breaking open with devotion and grief and hope. "But I had to be sure. I couldn't risk you. Not without proof." My lips parted, the realization crashing over me like a storm. "All this time," I whispered, "you weren't avoiding me because you didn't want me, but because touching me might kill me." He nodded slowly, painfully. "And now?" I whispered. "You're sure I won't die?" His chest rose and fell with a shudder. "I wasn't sure," he said. "Not until tonight. Lucien. But now?" His voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "Now I know. The curse breaks only when the Alpha King claims the one woman born with the Frostborn blessing, the one woman fate meant for him." His eyes blazed. "You." "The cure," I breathed, though the word tasted too small for the storm swirling through the room. His eyes were already on me, hungry, tortured, burning with 7 years of chained desire, finally snapping free. The Alpha King did not move. He launched, crossing the room like a starving wolf who'd just scented the first meal in years. "You," he said again, voice shaking with something too raw to be disguised. "You are the cure. You always were." I stepped back without meaning to, not from fear but from the overwhelming truth behind his gaze. It was like standing in front of a wildfire that had been waiting 7 years for a single spark. "My bloodline," I whispered. "My pack's magic? How?" "I didn't know," he rasped. "Not at first. Not when they told me about the curse. Not when she—" His throat locked, grief squeezing his voice into silence. "I knew only that my touch destroys. My claim kills." His chest heaved once, twice, like he was wrestling the ghost of his own past. "But you," he continued, stepping closer, "you were the first woman who didn't get sick after standing near me. The first who didn't weaken when I brushed against your hand. The first whose heartbeat didn't falter when we kissed during our ceremony." My breath caught. That kiss, the one moment that had felt like fate wrapped in fire, had haunted me for years. I'd thought he regretted it. I'd thought he resented it. But now I saw truth crash across his face like a wave breaking through a dam. "You think I pushed you away because I hated wanting you?" he said, voice cracking. "I pushed you away because wanting you was the first sign. The curse was changing, and I didn't know what that meant." "You thought I would die," I whispered. He nodded once. like it physically hurt him. So, for 7 years, I said slowly, you locked yourself away because you thought one touch would kill me. His jaw tightened. I would rather be alone for a lifetime than bury you. My heart detonated behind my ribs. And tonight? I asked. Tonight you said you found the cure. What changed? His breath shook, like saying the next words required ripping open old scars. Your bloodline, he said. Your pack's magic. I finally found the missing piece. A text hidden in one of the old world archives, older than our history, older than most spells ever recorded. It showed symbols from your ancestors. Their magic doesn't decay under my curse. His voice softened with awe. It consumes it, neutralizes it. Your magic is the only one strong enough to devour mine and live. Devour, I echoed, skin flushing at the word and how his eyes darkened when he heard it. Yes, he said hoarsely, your power devours mine. You were made to survive me, to match me, to save me. He stepped closer and I felt his heat before he touched me, like the air itself reached for him. I had to be sure, he said. I had to test every theory, hunt every book, interrogate every surviving witch from the war. If I claimed you too early, if I touched you too deeply, too fiercely, it could have killed you. And now, my voice was barely a whisper. Now, he said, his voice breaking with hunger and relief, I am certain. For a moment, neither of us moved. The space between us tightened until it felt like another heartbeat pulsing in the room. Ours fused together, trembling with the same need. Then he exhaled. The sound alone snapped the last restraint inside him. He reached for me, not carefully, not cautiously, but with 7 years of starved longing erupting all at once. His hands cupped my face, and before I could breathe, think, or blink, his lips crashed into mine. It wasn't a kiss. It was an unmaking. It was every night he'd stood behind that door, wanting but denying himself. Every morning I'd woken up wondering why I wasn't enough. Every ache, every stolen glance, every suppressed desire bursting free like a dam finally breaking. He kissed me like I was the first taste of oxygen after drowning. I melted into him, fingers curling into his shirt, pulling him closer as if trying to make up for all the years we'd wasted. He groaned into my mouth, low, guttural, primal, and the sound shot straight through me. 7 years held back. 7 years denied. 7 years of both of us pretending we were fine. The kiss deepened, turned desperate, turned reverent. He pressed his forehead to mine, breathing like he was fighting tears. I thought I'd lost you, he whispered, voice shaking violently. Every day you walked past me, every time you slept in that cold room alone. I wanted you. Gods. I wanted you until it hurt. My heart clenched. Then why didn't you come to me? I asked, voice cracking. Because I didn't trust myself, he said. Not with the curse, not with the hunger. His thumb traced my cheek, trembling. But now I can finally touch you. He kissed the corner of my mouth, slow and reverent. My queen, then my jaw, my salvation, then the base of my throat, my everything. The words wrapped around me like a claim stronger than any mark. He worshipped me with his hands, with his voice, with the way he touched me like I was both wildfire and glass, both sacred and necessary. Every inch of skin he'd forced himself not to touch for 7 years, he now treated like something he was rediscovering piece by piece. He pressed his lips to my collarbone, my shoulder, my pulse. 7 years, he whispered against my skin. 7 years of wanting you, of dreaming of you, of imagining the sound you'd make when I finally let myself have you. My breath faltered. He lifted his head, eyes blazing with raw devotion and possession. The Alpha King who never touched you, he said, voice dark and reverent, cannot stop touching you now. And he didn't. He traced every line of me with a hunger softened by awe. Every kiss held 7 years of longing. Every whisper carried 7 years of silence. Every shiver in his hands told me how desperately he had ached for this, for me, for us. And as he pulled me into his arms, into the fire and redemption of his touch, I realized something. He hadn't just found his cure. I had found mine too. We didn't leave his chambers for 3 days, 7 years of pain. 3 days of healing, a lifetime of making up for every stolen moment. When we finally stepped out, the castle looked the same, but we were not. Now, when I walk through the halls, he can't keep his hands off me. In council meetings, his hand rests on my thigh under the table. At dinners, he pulls out my chair like I'm something precious. In corridors, he stops mid-sentence just to kiss me like he's afraid time will rewind again. The whispers used to be, the queen he never touched. Now they hush and murmur, the queen he can't stop touching. I went from ghost to goddess, from the forgotten queen to the woman the Alpha King worships with every breath. And every night, when he pulls me into his arms and buries his face in my neck, he holds me like he's terrified the universe will take me back. Never again, he vows against my skin, never again will you feel unloved. 7 years of torture. One night that rewrote our fate. Was the pain worth it? Ask me when he's kissing me breathless, whispering my name like a prayer. I'll tell you the truth, every damn second. For 7 years, the Alpha King never touched me, until one night he finally broke and devoured his queen. And now? Now he'll never let me go.